Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have another mother culture video about some recent books that I've had in my mother's morning basket. And these are all books around motherhood, home education, parenting through faith, and just general child development books. And I'm going to just share some of the most recent books that I've read during my morning time. So the first book here is called Devoted by Tim Challies. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But it's about great Christian men from past and present and how their mothers had an influence on their faith. So I have two boys, and I thought this would be interesting, although I'm not the same strand of Christianity that the author is. So he does have some differing views or comments about certain people and their faiths, but I did find it useful just to have some examples of different Christian men, and just found it interesting because a lot of them were people that I'd not heard of before. There were people like Charles Spurgeon, who I was really interested in reading a bit more about. And then other people like Augustine, John Newton, and people like that who I'd heard of, but it was interesting to know a bit more about their childhood and also what they went on to do for their faith, and how their mother had influenced them through teaching of scripture, catechism, and so on at home. So as I'm homeschooling my two boys, and I want them to sort of share faith with us, and I thought this might be interesting just to hear about how different mums have done this. I would say the chapters are really short, and it does have, obviously it is written by a man, but it does have some comments or reflections from a woman's voice at the end of each chapter from a mother. So it's sort of balanced out there. And it does have some suggestions like questions and activities to do if you want to do those, and further reading for each person, such as biographies that you could go on to read about the people in more detail. So yeah, it was a great short read. I don't agree with the same theology that the author has, but it's still interesting. Obviously everyone's entitled to their own comments and things, so yeah, it's just a really quick read, and I think it could have gone into a bit more depth. It was adapted from a blog, so that might be why there's not too much content to it, but it would be interesting to go further into some of these people's lives if you were interested in doing that, and there are suggestions in the book for that. And the next book is actually one that I got from a parenting course that I did at my local church, where we attend a toddler group, and this is by a company called Parenting for Faith, and I did a babies and toddlers sort of spiritual life group that was about 6 weeks, and we just met and watched some short videos based on from a course that's based on this book, and it just got us talking about how we can sort of talk about our spiritual life with children even as young as babies and toddlers, who you might think are not ready to talk about that stuff or understand that stuff. But it was interesting, although the book was quite a letdown really. There wasn't much substance to it, and it was written for someone who really has no experience of faith or going to church. There were parts of the book that explained what a church service was like, but there was no mention of communion, which I found a bit odd. And I just got sort of turned off by that. But if you're very new to faith and you have a young baby, I think it could be useful, but it just really didn't go in depth. But I would definitely recommend the courses if your local churches are running them, and the church is free to get all the access to all the materials for it. So if you are involved in church leadership, then I think it's a good thing to be able to offer if you have the volunteers to be able to run a group like this, and the interest. But it was just good to get together with other mums and talk about faith in our children, because it's such a big responsibility. The next book is such a classic homeschool book. I've seen it referenced in so many books about homeschooling, from people like Cindy Rowlings, who said it inspired her to start homeschooling. And I think this is a reprint. I think it was quite a big book. I'm going to say in the 70s, but I'm not sure. But it was reprinted by the lady's daughter, and it's called For the Children's Sake. And it's just a basic summary of Charlotte Mason approach to education. So for those who haven't read Home Education, this is a great introduction, and it only took me about a week to read this book. It was not that long. I could have read it in a day if I didn't have children, obviously. But it was such an easy read, and it was so motivating. It gave such a great summary of things that you can do for each different subject, or to teach different habits in your children. I just loved it, and it really made me motivated to want to carry on educating my children in the Charlotte Mason way. My children are only 3 and 1, so there's so much that I want to do, but we're not really doing yet, and it does make me excited for the future. I definitely recommend this if you haven't read Home Education. I have read Home Education before by Charlotte Mason, but this was still a great reminder, and it was presented, the information was presented in kind of a clearer way than what Charlotte Mason, how Charlotte Mason presents it, if that makes sense. But yeah, it was a great sort of little book to make sure you're covering some key subjects and key areas in your homeschool. And it's a great starting point for looking at how you are educating your children when it comes to those areas, and making sure you're not missing out on anything, and really getting the essence of what Charlotte Mason designed her curriculum to be, with those all the children in mind. And it also, I'd say it's useful for people even if their children go to school, because she does acknowledge that there are things you can do with your children even if they go to school that will help them enrich their education. This next book is a book that someone recommended. They said it was a local homeschooling family, and she said this was the book that made her want to homeschool her children. And this is called The Brainy Bunch by Kip and Mona Lisa Harding. And this is kind of, on the face value, it's a typical homeschooling family from what you think about when you think of someone that's homeschooled. You think of a child genius that goes to college at a very young age, or university. So this is kind of, their children all went to university and college at a very young age. But behind that is really the fact that because they had one-on-one tuition sort of from their parents, and they were able to pursue their interests because they had the freedom of being home educated, that they became more advanced and they needed that more challenging material really to satisfy their sort of hunger for knowledge in their passionate areas that they had found through being able to explore a variety of subjects through home education. And there's lots of resources recommended in the book. The mum talks about really how she managed with several different children at home and some at college at the same time, and a husband working away. And she gives an example of her schedule and things they like to enjoy together as a family. And there's also comments from the children about their experience being home educated or going to college at a young age. It's not a very long book, and it wasn't as detailed in the curriculum as I thought it would be, but it was obviously they have very specific interests, each of the children, so it wouldn't really be applicable to every family. But it's a good sort of narrative of what happened in their family when they chose to home educate their children, and it also includes a bit about the reasons for home educating your children and the benefits, as well as the biblical sort of direction that they found when they decided to home educate. This next book is called The Montessori Child by Simone Davies and Jennifer Uzudoki. I think I'm saying that right. But this is about a Montessori approach to child development and parenting in general. It's not specific to home education at all. But it gives you an insight into how Montessori schools work, or how Maria Montessori imagined that education would work in the schools, as well as just how parents would interact with their children, applying these Montessori principles in order to nurture their children's independence and exploration of the world around them. And this specifically is aimed at parents of 6 to 12-year-olds, I think, or 3 to 12-year-olds, sorry. And then it breaks it down into like 3 to 6 as one like growth area, and then 6 onwards, and then sort of goes up into the teenage years as they became a lot more independent really, and sort of separate themselves from like the key family unit to finding their own sort of tribe of friends and so on. So there's a lot of looking ahead in this book for me, because I only have 2 toddlers and I've just got a 3-year-old now. So this is why I sort of got this next book, because I've recently finished the Montessori toddler and now we're sort of going into the 3 to 6 stage of child development and education. And what I really like about these books is it covers, you know, some hard topics like lying or, you know, safety outside, and tantrums and things like that, and how to deal with those in a respectful manner for your child. And it also has a great list of activities in the back, which are really useful, as well as some more information online. It's split into different subjects, the activities, and there's things like practical life, but there's also actual subjects now. So in the toddler and baby books, it was more about self-care and practical life, helping around the house, but now this is more into sort of school education subjects that they might be starting to do at this age. And I feel like these activities could be applied to home education. It gives you ideas for how to help them learn math skills, geography skills, science skills, arts and crafts, and so much more. as well as language skills, and I'll definitely be drawing from this as I plan my curriculum over the next few years. And I just wanted to show that I have here the Montessori baby book and the Montessori toddler book. The baby book covers ages 0 to 1 as well as pregnancy, and the toddler book covers 1 to 3. And they have some great illustrations and suggestions for activity shelves that you can set up and prepare for your child, as well as the baby book has some key information about the development of fine motor skills and gross motor skills and language skills, and how you can support your baby through activities, even at the sort of 0 to 3 and pregnancy stages. And I definitely recommend these two as well if you have children of those ages. So there we have it. Those are the recent books that I've been reading in my morning basket. I've always got a book about mother culture in my morning basket, and it is one of my favourite things to read about. So I get really excited when I find new books that are around motherhood, parenting, home education, and so on. So if you have any suggestions, I would love to hear them in the comments, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye.